So packages, domain, and then service classes. Now you heard me saying a couple of times business logic, right? So business logic. Now the business logic really is pretty much like the main meat of your backend applications, right? It's all the fine details that your application is supposed to do in certain scenarios. Now, they handle all business logic for whatever problem you're trying to solve. You see here we have car, cat, garage, so on and so forth. So within each of these packages, more often or not, you'll have a service class for the corresponding model. So here, car and then service. Maybe you want to have the ability of throwing cars to a database, or maybe cats to a database, or you want to add a new car to a garage, for example, right? So what happens if the garage is full? Then you can add more cars, right? So this is the business logic. Or maybe here, person. Maybe your system only allows you to register people which are age 16 or above, and you're trying to maybe register someone which is younger, then your system shouldn't allow them to do so. So all of that is part of the business logic. So let's just basically first, let's just say that in here we have a class inside of person, and I'm going to name it as person and then service. Now this class is mainly used for business logic. That's it, business logic. Now let's say that we want to have a method. So here I'm going to say public, and you've learned about access modifiers, int, and then add, and then person, and this will take a person object just like that. And basically for now, let me just say return and then 1. So this result in here doesn't really matter. It could be a boolean or even void, but just the fact that I'm returning 1 for my application, 1 means success, and maybe -1 means it didn't work, right? So in SQL is the number of rows affected if you're trying to add this person to the database. Now here we could just say, for example, if, and then person dot, and then get, and we don't have age, right? But let's say that here get first name dot is, and let's just say is blank. So is blank, right? So if the first name is blank, then we want to throw new illegal argument exception, for example. And let me just put this full screen, and I'm going to say here that, so on a new line, first name cannot be null or empty, for example. There we go. And you can see that this is the business logic, right? So here, if this is the case, then we throw an exception. Then maybe you want to check something else. Maybe if the person's last name is the same, then you want to throw an exception. But eventually, if it works, then you want to carry on and maybe store person to DB, for example. So this class has a method called add person, and this performs some business logic before it adds the person to the database. So similarly, so with the garage, so let's just say garage, and in here let's just say garage service. So garage and then service. So this class, we have one method, public. This time let's just say int, or actually boolean. Let's just say boolean. And I'm going to say add car to garage, and in here we're going to receive a car and also the corresponding garage that we want to add the car to. Let me just put this full screen, garage and then garage. Now what we want to do, right? So we want to check whether the garage has some space. So garage, or actually if, and then garage dot, and then get capacity, right? So have a look. So get capacity is less than current count. Now, in order for us to count the number of cars in the garage, So we need to do the following. So we need a temporary variable. So let's just say int, and then I want to say count equals 2 and then 0. And let's loop through the garage. So I'm going to say garage dot and then cars dot and then 4. And I'm going to say car or C and then if and then C not equals to null. So if this is the case, then we want to increment count. So we know that there is a car inside of the garage. Now I'm going to say if the capacity, so if the current capacity is less than count, we can add the car to the garage, right? So here I'm not going to add the functionality, so add car to garage and then maybe return true. So at this point we know that we added the car to the garage. Otherwise, if we come all the way in here, we could just return and then false. Or if you prefer, you can flip these. So you could say if it's greater or equal, so if it's greater or equal, then count, then we know that there's a mistake. So return false. So we know that we can add a car to the garage because, oh, actually, sorry, this is count. So it should be count greater or equal to the capacity. Then we know that we cannot add a car to the garage. Otherwise, we can continue, right? So otherwise, we can add the car and then return true. So I think this is a much better implementation. But you can see here, this garage service has one method called add car to garage. And here, this is the business logic. This is the business logic. Now, again, here, we could also check, well, if the car equals to null. So if the car that we're trying to add equals to null, then we want to throw new illegal argument exception, right? New line or car cannot be null, for example. So you can see how this is expanding, right? So this is all business logic. So hopefully you can see that for each maybe package, you also have a cat service, car service, so on and so forth. Maybe here you want to register a new car into your database, right? Then you have maybe another class, so car and then service. And here let's just have a method, so public, and then here I'm going to say void this time. And again, you need to decide whether you want to return void or int or a boolean, but most of the times I always keep integers because this is what SQL returns, the number of rows affected. So here, register new and then car. We're going to take a car, and again we can do a bunch of logic. Let me just return 1, so in case that all the checks pass, right? So here you want to check if car is not null, check if reg number is valid, check if reg number not taken, and basically depending on whatever you have within your properties, you can perform all the checks. And also depending on your environment. So price, I saw price. So if price is less than 0, it can't be a price, right? So you can see how we would have a bunch of code here for implementing business logic. So hopefully the service classes, i.e. business logic, do make sense. If you have any questions on them, please let me know. Otherwise, catch me on the next one.